Presenting our podcast, Got Milk, the Indian Dairy Context, brought to you by Shunya Agritech, India's first animal nutrition and well-being focused organization. Say hello to your hosts, Gear and Sahil.
Welcome back to The Deep Dive. This is where we take complex sources, things like internal strategy memos, dense research papers, or high-level economic data.
And we really try to distill them.
Exactly. We pull out the core, actionable insights you need. And our mission today is focused on one of the most vital economies in East Africa.
Kenya's dairy sector.
Which is, as we'll see, also structurally very challenging.
And this is a deep dive with massive stakes. I mean, we're looking at a true powerhouse here.
A powerhouse. How so?
Well, the industry contributes something like 14% of agricultural GDP.
14%.
And that's about 3.5% of the total national GDP, supporting millions and millions of livelihoods. We are talking about an estimated 5.76 billion liters of milk produced in 2023.
That is an absolutely enormous amount of milk flowing through the economy.
It is, but here's the catch. The structure is what we really need to pay attention to.
Okay.
Our source material, and this includes an internal discussion note, describes the market as smallholder-driven, under-formalized.
Meaning most of it is off the books.
In a way, yeah. Only about 15% of that massive volume ever passes through the formal sector.
I see.
So we're pairing that big picture analysis with some really high-quality on-the-ground research.
Right, the boots-on-the-ground view.
Exactly. Specifically, a 2016 study by Njima that focused on smallholder farmers adopting new feed technology in Kiambu sub-county. So we get the macro strategy and the crucial micro-reality.
Okay, so let's unpack this. We have this essential, complex industry. Given the scale, what's the urgent why now? Why is feed security suddenly this strategic crisis point that needs immediate solutions?
The inescapable truth is climate stress. It really is.
Right.
We are seeing the profound effects of climate change playing out in real time. Kenya has, recently faced the worst drought in 40 years.
40 years? That's devastating.
It resulted in catastrophic livestock loss. We are talking about over 2.5 million livestock lost.
2.5 million.
Mostly in the arid and semi-arid lands, the ASLs.
That is just heartbreaking and a massive hit to rural wealth and resilience.
And the effects are widespread. Even in non-ASL regions, like, say, West Pocock County, studies showed nearly 40% of pastures were adversely affected.
So the grass just wasn't growing.
Farmers were reporting fields completely drying up. So you have this highly fodder-sensitive livestock economy, which is already dealing with structural feed scarcity, and now
It's being hit by these historic droughts.
Yeah, exactly. It's being intensified.
So structurally, how severe is this feed scarcity for the smallholders, the ones who produce, 85% of that national milk volume? I saw a truly astonishing number in our sources on this.
This is our big aha moment, and it really explains the urgency. The research shows that feed scarcity is the key constraint for these smallholder dairy farms in the Kenyan highlands.
The key constraint, not price, not market access, but feed.
Feed. They face an average 60.5% fodder deficit.
60%.
Think about that. Over half of the feed their cows need is simply not available.
60% missing. That sounds economically disastrous.
It is. And here's the brutal metric. That 60.5% deficit directly translates into a 117% milk yield gap.
Wait, hold on. 117%. How can the gap be larger than the initial potential?
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense.
I know, it sounds counterintuitive, but it's because it speaks to the quality of the feed, not just the quantity.
Oh.
When cows are severely malnourished, or they're relying on poor quality grazing, their production just plummets. It drops drastically below their genetic potential.
I see.
So that 117% figure, it highlights how much money, how much potential productivity is being left on the table purely because of feed limitations.
It's a massive hole in the bucket. It makes perfect sense now. They aren't just losing the cows they can't feed. The cows they do manage to feed are producing half of what they should be.
Exactly. And when you model this out, the annual feed deficit is just enormous. Over 3.6 billion hay bales annually.
That's a number I can't even picture.
Right. So for any technology that can provide reliable, high-quality feed 365 days a year, the economic incentive for Kenya is it's undeniable.
So given that massive climate-exacerbated feed gap, let's pivot. Let's talk about the solution our sources emphasize. Hydroponic fodder.
Right.
This technology seems to offer huge advantages over conventional farming, especially when it comes to water and land.
Yeah, hydroponics is, at its core, simply growing plants without soil.
In water.
Usually using stacked trays and nutrient-enriched water, yeah. For animal feed, this almost always means sprouting grains like barley, and the speed is incredible. The fodder is ready to feed to the animals in just 7 days.
7 days, that's a game changer. It means farmers can react almost instantly to a drought shock or some other supply chain failure.
And the efficiency gains are just staggering. Take water use. Conventional farming, it often requires 80 units of water to produce 1 unit of fodder.
Okay, 80 to 1.
With hydroponics, because it uses closed-loop systems, you're using only 1.5 units of water to produce 1 kilogram of fodder.
That is a massive reduction in the environmental footprint.
It's huge.
For smallholders, though, I imagine land is the biggest constraint, especially near urban centers. How does this tech address that lack of space?
This is maybe the most transformative statistic in the sources. For a zero grazing farmer, an area of just 12 square meters can produce enough fodder to feed 2 dairy cows daily.
12 square meters, so the size of a small room.
Pretty much. And the sources quantify that. That spatial efficiency is the equivalent of needing 600 acres of open pasture.
12 square meters versus 600 acres, that's not an incremental improvement. That truly changes the calculus for farmers who are facing intense land pressure.
And it improves the product, too. The sprouting process actually boosts nutritional value. It converts complex compounds in the grain into simpler, more easily digestible forms, sugars, minerals, vitamins.
So it's better food.
It's better food, and the field experiments show this works. Milk yield improvements of 13.7% were demonstrated after dairy cattle were fed hydroponic fodder.
So the technology is efficient, it's climate resilient, and it boosts output. If the solution is so clear, why isn't it everywhere in Kenya already?
That's the key question. The market is highly fragmented.
Meaning?
Well, while it's not a brand new concept, the current market is dominated by equipment suppliers. They focus on a capital expenditure model, a CAPEX model.
So they're selling the hardware, the sheds, the racks, the pumps.
Exactly.
And that upfront cost, even if it's only, say, $100 for a simple shed system, that can be the initial barrier that smallholders just can't cross.
Precisely. Even 10,000 Kenyan shillings can be prohibitive for a farmer living close to the margin. And this immediately highlights a huge opportunity gap. The market needs to shift away from just selling hardware.
Right, towards a flexible service-based model.
Yes, this is where the internal note suggests fodder as a service, or FAS.
Okay, tell us how that subscription model would work in practice.
Well, think of it like a subscription service for their cows. Instead of the farmer having to invest, say, 100,000 shillings in a big setup and then maintain the humidity and manage the whole growing process.
Which is a lot of work and risk.
A ton of risk. Instead, they just subscribe to receive daily, high-quality, pre-grown fodder delivered right to their door. It shifts the operational risk and the capital cost away from the farmer.
Which makes it an operating expense, not a massive capital hurdle.
Exactly. And if you link that FAS model with smart systems, sensors and AI, you can quantify the performance.
So you can track milk yield improvement, fat percentage.
Even carbon and water savings. And this data is so critical, you can use it for performance-based pricing, and eventually it unlocks conversations about credit and even insurance for these farmers.
We've established the theoretical market needs, but theory, well, it often breaks down in practice.
Oh.
Let's look at the ground truth in Kiambu Sub-County, where that Njima research was done.
Right.
Urbanization makes that 12 square meter efficiency vital, yet you said adoption is low. What did the study actually reveal?
The numbers are pretty stark. Only 4% of the smallholder farmers they surveyed in Kiambu were growing hydroponic fodder at the time of the study.
Only 4%. So it's known, but it hasn't scaled at all.
Not at all.
And what did the researchers find was the biggest single reason for that huge adoption gap? I would have guessed capital cost, or maybe the difficulty of getting the grain.
And that is the most important finding of the entire study. It's genuinely counterintuitive.
Okay.
The single biggest reason cited by the majority of respondents, 51% of them, for not adopting hydroponics was the lack of skills on how to produce it correctly.
Wait, really? Not money, not land scarcity. The barrier is just knowledge.
Yes. And it makes sense when you think about the operation.
How so?
It sounds simple, but maintaining those conditions is critical. Barley is the planting material of choice. 80% use it. But the major operational challenge is mold growth.
Ah, right.
If you don't meticulously control the correct moisture and make sure the materials are totally clean, the fodder molds. And that's useless, potentially dangerous feed. It requires a specific, repeatable set of management practices.
That need for precision explains it. That's why a lack of skill is a higher barrier than the initial cost. If you buy the system and you ruin your first 5 batches, you've wasted your money and precious time.
Exactly. Now, let's look at what the study calls the extension paradox. Did farmers have access to the information they needed to bridge that skills gap?
I'm guessing not.
Not really. Only 46% of farmers had access to agricultural extension services at all, and most of that, 63%, came from commercial companies, not government support.
So the existing knowledge pipeline is weak, but for the 4% who did adopt, how did they learn?
This is the really crucial part. When they analyzed what positively influences the adoption decision, access to information through seminars and the internet was found to be statistically significant.
So targeted learning.
Very targeted. 67% of the successful adopters in that study learned their skills in seminars. That suggests that this kind of hands-on knowledge transfer is key. It's far more effective than generalized outreach, even though most farmers, 65%, cited radio as their main source for general dairy farming info.
So the solution is specific, high-touch education, not just mass communication. What about the economic factors? Did loans or being close to markets make a difference?
That's another really interesting finding from the study. It established that market access, and nearly all farmers, 96%, had market access, did not influence the decision to produce hydroponic fodder.
Okay, so being able to sell the milk wasn't the issue.
And similarly, access to loans, which 50% of farmers had used for other inputs, also did not influence the production decision.
Which just hammers home the point again. The constraint isn't capital or the market. It's the operational confidence and knowledge needed to run the system reliably, day in and day out.
There was one demographic factor that did matter, though: the number of dependents.
How did that affect it?
The study found a negative correlation. As the number of dependents decreases, the possibility of growing hydroponics fodder increases.
That suggests that households facing higher financial or labor stress may be less likely to take on the management-intensive effort of a new precision technology.
That seems to be the logical conclusion, yes. If we look at the government strategy, the timing for solving this feed deficit is actually perfect. This technology aligns perfectly with national policies.
How does this slot into the broader Kenyan strategic vision?
Well, it serves two main objectives. First, the Kenya Climate Smart Agriculture Strategy, that's all about promoting low emissions and climate-resilient agriculture. Hydroponics, with its massive water and land savings, is a perfect fit.
And the second?
It aligns with the Kenya dairy industry's sustainability roadmap for 2023-2033. That plan aims to increase milk production, improve farmer incomes, and reduce the environmental footprint. Hydroponic fodder is an obvious enabler for all three of those goals.
That policy alignment really opens the door for innovative financing. So let's talk about scalability. Our source materials segment the market into 3 strategic opportunity buckets. Where are the best places to start scaling this fodder as a service model?
The first and most immediate is what they call the dairy-dense highlands and midlands. Think of concentrated clusters of farms in places like Nyandarua or Kiambu. Smallholders with maybe 2 to 10 cows in zero grazing or intensive systems.
These are farmers who are already organized, right? Often around cooperatives or chilling hubs, and they're already used to paying for high-quality feed.
Exactly. This is the sweet spot for establishing what our sources call growth and logistics centers, or GLCs.
So production hubs.
Centralized production hubs that can serve 50 to 200 regular subscription customers because you have that stable purchase power and those concentrated clusters.
Makes sense. What about the second bucket, the more difficult, high-impact zones that face the worst climate risk?
That's the ASCL pastoral zones. Now, mobility makes the logistics complex, but hydroponic units can function as crucial resilience infrastructure.
How so?
You'd place them around trading centers to protect high-value breeding stock during droughts. And this segment is a perfect candidate for specialized climate adaptation financing or donor support.
To help pay for the initial setup costs and de-risk the operation.
Exactly right.
And finally, the B2B segment.
The institutional and B2B segment. This includes your medium to large commercial farms, processors, research institutes like ColorR. These are ideal early adopters for pilot programs.
Because they can provide hard data.
Rigorous, high-value data proof on milk yield and quality gains, which is essential for establishing credibility before you try to scale to the smallholders.
So, given that the current market is dominated by equipment sellers, how does a new player break through and really exploit these gaps?
They need 3 key differentiators beyond just offering fodder as a service. First, they have to focus intensely on service, not hardware. Make the subscription model anchored in performance data.
Right.
Second, integrate a smart system. Standardized processes, maybe AI quality scoring, digital environmental control, something to ensure the quality is consistent and that the skills gap is managed by the technology itself.
And the final piece of the puzzle?
A structured franchise or production partner model. This is critical for scale.
Why a franchise model?
It allows local youth or agri-entrepreneurs to own and operate those growth and logistics centers under a common trusted process. It localizes job creation while standardizing the technology.
A very powerful model for scaling.
So to sum up, we've established that the core structural problem in Kenya is this massive quantifiable feed deficit, which is being drastically worsened by climate change. This creates a clear and enormous economic incentive for technology that can provide reliable 365-day feed like hydroponics.
And we've learned that we have the technology. It saves water, it saves land, it boosts nutrition. But the adoption data from Kiambu gives us the critical takeaway. Scaling this solution hinges on access to high-quality knowledge and operational skill, not just access to capital or market proximity.
It's a teaching challenge.
It is fundamentally a teaching challenge tied to a technology solution.
And this raises an important question for you, the listener, to consider. Given that the lack of skills cited by 51% of farmers is the primary barrier to adoption, and that information access through seminars and the internet is a statistically significant positive predictor for success, what specific role should digital agriculture policy play in addressing that skills gap to accelerate the adoption of these vital climate-resilient farming technologies across Kenya?
Something to mull over as you reflect on these sources.
Hope you enjoyed this episode of Got Milk, the Indian Dairy Context. Subscribe to the podcast. And a reminder, this episode was brought to you by Shunya Agritech, India's first animal nutrition and well-being focused organization. Thank you, and see you in the next episode.